Just a few of the amazing, weird, and surprising facts you are going to discover in this episode include: how old is the practice of dentistry? Hint, nope, it's older than that. The co-host of the popular Today Show, who brought in about $100 million to NBC in the early 1950s, and that co-host wasn't even human. The country that eats more mac and cheese than any other country in the world. The unusual pet President John Quincy Adams reportedly kept at the White House. The surprising animal that can sense a coming earthquake 5 days prior to the event. These strange facts and so much more straight ahead in this episode of Weird and Surprising Facts. Hello and welcome to the Weird and Surprising Facts podcast. I am your host, Stephen Carter. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Who is this show for? If you're keen to learn about the strange, unusual, surprising, and just plain weird facts you can share with family and friends, this show is for you. They're going to think you are an absolute fact genius. Let us get right to our weird and surprising facts. Number 1, it's been said a certain profession involving ladies of the evening is the oldest profession known to civilization. Well, we may have a new contender for that title: dentistry. Yes, dentistry. We have archaeological evidence that dentistry has been practiced for more than 9,000 years. Practiced for more than 9,000 years. According to the American Dental Education Association, dentistry is one of the oldest medical professions, dating back to 7,000 BC with the Indus Valley Civilization. However, it wasn't until 5,000 BC that descriptions related to dentistry and tooth decay were available. At the time, a Sumerian text described tooth worms as causing dental decay, an idea that wasn't proven false until the 1700s. Fact 2. The NBC Today Show is one of the oldest running shows on television. Ratings were not great until a new co-host was introduced to viewers. That new co-host, J. Fred Muggs, a chimpanzee. J. Fred Muggs, a chimpanzee, first appeared on the show on February 3rd, 1953. He was dressed in diapers like a baby. The Today Show had begun in 1952 with Dave Garroway as host, but that show was not doing well. The introduction of a chimpanzee co-host caused Jim Fleming, the original newsreader, he decided to quit. He was replaced by newsreader Frank Blair, but the star of the show was Muggs. Muggs was so popular with viewers that he was credited with bringing in about $100 million during his years of co-hosting from 1953 to 1957. Are you a fan of mac and cheese? I certainly am. You might think the leading country for consumption of mac and cheese would be the U.S., but that would not be correct. According to FantasticFacts.net, Canadians eat more Kraft macaroni and cheese than anyone else in the world. They consume about 55% more than those of us in the United States, and the U.S. came in second place. How long has mac and cheese been a staple in North America? Well, it turns out Thomas Jefferson, the third U.S. president, introduced this now famous dish to the United States. He discovered mac and cheese while on diplomatic duties in France and brought it home. It was even served in an 1802 state dinner Jefferson hosted. Our next fact relates to a rather strange pet reportedly kept by President John Quincy Adams in the White House. According to several sources, including mentalfloss.com, President John Quincy Adams kept a pet alligator, in a bathtub at the White House. The alligator was a gift given to him by Marquis de Lafayette, the famous French general. He kept it in a tub in the East Room of the White House for several months, allegedly claiming that he enjoyed watching the spectacle of guests fleeing from the room in terror. While several sources do attest to this presidential alligator, Snopes has the claim listed as unproven. Now, that does not mean that it was not a fact. They just, through whatever standards they have, could not completely validate the claim. Although there are a variety of other reputable sources that do claim it is true. True or not, it's a colorful story that, if it isn't true, well, I think it should be. Speaking of unusual animals, there are numerous reports of animals engaging in unusual protective acts to include moving to higher ground days before an earthquake. According to CBC News, Chinese scientists monitor activities of snakes in certain regions as predictors of earthquake events. According to their report, this practice has successfully predicted earthquakes and saved lives. Next up, would you want your surgeon to engage in several hours of video games before operating on you? According to a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, or JAMA, the title of this study, The Impact of Video Games on Training Surgeons in the 21st Century, they claimed surgeons who had played video games in the past for more than 3 hours a week made 37% fewer errors, were 27% faster, and scored 42% better overall than those surgeons who never played video games. Current video game players made 32% fewer errors, were 24% faster, and scored 26% better overall than their non-player colleagues. And for our final fact, consider the crunchy, tasty potato chips in a can called Pringles. According to mashed.com, organic chemist, Navy aviation physiologist, and Pringles can inventor Frederick Bauer considered the potato chip tube his crowning achievement in life. He was so proud of that achievement that before he died, he told his family he wished to be cremated so that his ashes could be buried in a Pringles can. According to Time magazine, his children initially thought it was a joke, but Bauer was firmly committed to the idea. So when the great inventor eventually passed away in 2008, his loved ones, well, they didn't pick out a fancy urn or a stately casket. No, they simply went to Walgreens, purchased a can of original Pringles, and said goodbye to their patriarch in a humble and oddly sweet way. If you're not already following the Weird and Surprising Facts show where you get your podcasts, now is the perfect time to do that. To listen to previous episodes, visit our show website at weirdandsurprisingfacts.com, weirdandsurprisingfacts.com. For other network shows, visit our main website at stressreliefradio.com, stressreliefradio.com. If you would like to be in contact with me for any reason, Email me at cartermethod@gmail.com, cartermethod@gmail.com. I do thank you for joining me for this episode of the Weird and Surprising Facts podcast. Until our next visit together, this is your host, Stephen Carter, wishing blessings in abundance for you and your loved ones.